discover the Buddha's answer. Why are we here? Welcome to Buddhist Stories, your channel for exploring the wisdom of Buddhism through stories and teachings that not only explain the mysteries of life, but also offer practical guidance for living a more mindful, compassionate life. If you've ever wondered what happens after death, or even questioned the very nature of existence, you're not alone. Life and death are two of humanity's greatest mysteries. And today, we'll be diving deep into what Buddhism has to say about them. But before we begin, I want to ask you, what if everything you thought you knew about life and death was wrong? Have you ever questioned the meaning of your life? Or wondered why we are born, why we suffer, and what happens to us after death? If so, you're in the right place. Because today, we're going to explore an answer that might not be what you expect, one that is ancient, profound, and deeply transformative. It's a perspective that challenges conventional thinking, and one that, once understood, can change your entire outlook on life. What if the Buddha's teachings on life, death, and rebirth could offer the answers to your deepest questions? Now, many of us might seek answers to these questions through science, philosophy, or religion. But what sets Buddhism apart is how it answers not just what happens after death, but also the path we must walk to transcend this cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Buddhism is not just about understanding life and death, it offers a path to liberation, to freedom from suffering, and to enlightenment. But how does Buddhism differ from other views? Why should we trust its teachings on something as profound as life after death? Let's take a step back and truly explore the Buddha's unique understanding. Unlike many spiritual teachings, Buddhism doesn't simply focus on the idea of an afterlife as something distant and abstract. Instead, it offers a practical approach to life right now, encouraging us to understand the nature of suffering, its causes, and how we can transform our minds and hearts in order to transcend it. Buddhism teaches that life and death are part of an ongoing cycle, the cycle of Samsara, a continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth driven by karma, our actions, thoughts, and words. But how do we break free from samsara? What does it take to transcend this cycle of suffering and rebirth? And why do some people struggle more than others? These questions lie at the heart of Buddhist teachings. But here's the twist. What if you didn't have to wait until you died to transcend suffering? What if freedom is something we can experience in this very life? Now, I know these are big questions, and you may feel like you're just beginning to scratch the surface of these mysteries. But don't worry, today, we're not just talking about philosophy. We're diving deep into the teachings of the Buddha that are designed to make a practical difference in our daily lives. And along the way, we'll be answering questions you might not have considered before, like, what happens when we die? Is there something beyond this life? And most importantly, how can we live a life that transcends suffering? If this sounds intriguing to you, make sure to stick around. We will unravel the mysteries of life, death, and rebirth through the lens of Buddhist wisdom and see how it might just hold the keys to a more peaceful, enlightened existence. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Buddhist Stories, where we explore the deepest teachings of Buddhism in a way that's practical, easy to understand, and deeply transformative. Now, let's jump in and explore the Buddha's answer to the biggest question of all: what happens after death? Why does Buddhism's perspective matter? What makes Buddhism's answer so unique is that it isn't just a religious or philosophical belief. It's a lived practice, something that affects every moment of our lives. We often think about life and death as separate realms. And while we acknowledge the reality of life, death can seem like an unknown void or an end. But the Buddha showed us that life and death are not opposites. They are part of an ongoing, cyclical process. Through his teachings, we understand that death is not the end, but a transition, just like birth. If we understand samsara, the cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth, it becomes clear that death is not an end to our consciousness, but simply a transformation, a shift into another form of existence. But here's the catch. Buddhism teaches that we don't simply wait for death to bring about enlightenment or freedom. We must act now to transform ourselves through mindfulness, ethical living, and wisdom. By doing so, we can escape the endless cycle of suffering and rebirth and ultimately achieve nirvana, a state of complete liberation and peace. So, you may be asking, what is this cycle, and how do we break free? What does it take to transcend the cycle of samsara and enter into a state of nirvana, freedom from suffering and rebirth? Well, this is where the teachings of the Buddha come into play. Through the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha explains the nature of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path to ending suffering. These truths are not just abstract ideas, they offer a concrete, actionable path that can be followed right now, in our lives today. Intrigued yet? If you're feeling curious and intrigued by how Buddhism might offer a completely different perspective on life, death, and rebirth, keep watching. We will explore practical steps that anyone can take to walk the path toward liberation. The answers you seek are not just philosophical musings, but practical tools to live a life of greater peace, clarity, and freedom. Let's dive deeper into how the Buddha's teachings can illuminate the mystery of life and death and help us live with greater meaning and purpose. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel as we continue this transformative journey through Buddhist wisdom together. The core of Buddhist philosophy rests on a profound understanding of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Unlike conventional beliefs where life is seen as a one-time event with a beginning and an end, Buddhism presents a radically different perspective. It views life as a continuous cycle, one that doesn't conclude with death, but rather flows from one existence to the next. Each life is influenced by the karma accumulated in previous lives. It is not just a single moment of life or death that matters, but the intricate web of cause and effect woven over countless lifetimes. The continuity of existence, an eternal flow. At first glance, this cycle might seem strange. In our world, we tend to think of life as a finite event, where birth marks the beginning, and death signals the end. But in the Buddhist worldview, life is not linear, it is cyclical. Just as the seasons change, just as the waves crash upon the shore only to retreat again, life itself moves in a circle. The story of our existence is not written in one chapter but in many, and each chapter carries forward the consequences of our past actions, thoughts, and intentions. In Buddhist philosophy, this is encapsulated in the concept of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, suffering, death, and rebirth. This cycle is influenced by karma, the law of cause and effect. Everything we do, think, and say carries consequences that ripple through our present and future lives. Imagine, if you will, a pond. When you throw a pebble into the water, ripples form and expand outward, touching everything in its path. So too do our actions, thoughts, and words, creating ripples that extend across time, touching our future in ways we may not even realize. The challenge lies in breaking free from this cycle of samsara. But how does one escape this cycle? How does one stop the endless rebirths, the endless suffering, the endless yearning? This is where Nirvana comes in, the ultimate goal of Buddhism. Nirvana is not a place but a state of being. It is a state of liberation, a release from the attachments and ignorance that bind us to samsara. Nirvana is a state of peace, a stillness of the mind, where the endless cycle of birth and death ceases to exist. Consciousness and rebirth. An eternal energy. The question that often arises is, how does consciousness, our thoughts, desires, and actions move from one body to another? It is a question that has intrigued many philosophers, scientists, and spiritual seekers for centuries. In Buddhism, the Buddha provides an analogy to explain this process. He asks us to think of radio waves. When we switch off the radio, the waves don't disappear. They continue to travel, even though we can no longer hear them. The waves are simply waiting to be picked up by another receiver. Similarly, when a person dies, their consciousness laden with the mental energy from their past life does not simply vanish. Instead, it moves through space, waiting for the right moment to reattach itself to a new being. In the same way that radio waves are constantly traveling through the air, our consciousness moves through space, waiting for a new body to receive it. But what does this process really mean? In practical terms, it means that the actions, desires, and tendencies we cultivate in this life continue to affect us in the next. The mental habits, the fears, the aspirations we hold, all have an impact. If we carry hatred, greed, or delusion in our hearts, these tendencies follow us into our next life. If we cultivate love, compassion, and wisdom, those qualities too shape the course of our future. This is where the practice of mindfulness and meditation becomes essential. By practicing mindfulness, we become aware of our thoughts and emotions, learning not to be controlled by them but to recognize their impermanence. Meditation allows us to cultivate inner peace and to break free from the cycle of attachments and desires that keep us bound to samsara. The power of karma. Actions and consequences. One of the central tenets of Buddhism is the law of karma, the belief that every action, thought, and word has consequences. Karma is often misunderstood as a system of reward and punishment. But it is much more than that. Karma is simply the law of cause and effect. It is not something external, but something internal. Our actions create ripples that affect the world around us and our future lives. Every time we act with kindness, we generate positive karma. When we speak words of compassion, we create good karma. When we hold thoughts of love and understanding, we sow the seeds for a brighter future. However, when we act out of anger, greed, or ignorance, we create negative karma that will eventually return to us in some form. This is not a system of judgment but a natural law of the universe. Just as planting a seed will eventually result in the growth of a tree, our actions will result in corresponding outcomes. Let me share with you a story from the Buddhist tradition that illustrates this concept clearly. A story of rebirth and karma. The tale of King Bimbisara. Once, there was a wise king named Bimbisara. He was an enlightened ruler, known for his compassion and kindness. However, despite his many good qualities, he was troubled by a question that would not leave his mind. Why do some people experience great suffering, while others are born into wealth and comfort? What determines the circumstances of our lives? One day, King Bimbisara approached the Buddha with his question. The Buddha, as always, responded not with a direct answer but with a story. There once was a man who was born blind, the Buddha said. He grew up in a small village, poor and without sight. His parents tried to care for him, but they were unable to provide for him as he grew older. One day, this blind man came across a rich merchant, a kind man who took pity on him. The merchant offered the blind man a small job, a way to earn a living. Over time, the merchant treated him with great care, giving him the food and shelter he needed to survive. The blind man, over time, grew to love the merchant and, in turn, the merchant came to trust the blind man, treating him like family. But why was this blind man born into such difficult circumstances? King Bimbisara asked. The Buddha continued. This blind man had been born into a life of suffering because of the karma he had created in his past life. In a previous existence, he had been a merchant who was cruel to the poor. He had ignored the suffering of others, focused solely on his own gain. As a result, in this life, he was born blind and without wealth. However, because of his good actions in this life, his kindness to the merchant, his future was now brightening. His karma was shifting, and he was sowing the seeds for a better future. The king was deeply moved by the story. He understood that the conditions of his own life were not random, but were the result of actions and choices made in this life and in previous ones. The path to freedom. Breaking the cycle. The Buddha taught that the ultimate way to break free from samsara is to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. This path provides a practical guide to living a life of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. It is a guide for transforming our minds and our actions, ultimately leading to liberation from samsara. The Eightfold Path consists of 1. Right view. Understanding the nature of reality, recognizing that all things are impermanent and interconnected. 2. Right intention. Cultivating intentions that are aligned with compassion, non-harm, and wisdom. 3. Right speech. Speaking truthfully, kindly, and without divisiveness. 4. Right action. Acting ethically, avoiding harm to oneself and others. 5. Right livelihood. Engaging in work that is honest and beneficial to society. 6. Right effort. Making a consistent effort to cultivate good qualities and eliminate harmful ones. 7. Right mindfulness. Developing awareness of the present moment, recognizing the impermanence of all things. 8. Right concentration. Cultivating deep states of meditation that lead to clarity of mind and wisdom. By following this path, we begin to purify our actions, our speech, and our thoughts. We break free from the attachments and ignorance that keep us trapped in samsara, and move closer to achieving nirvana, the ultimate peace and liberation. Call to action. A journey of transformation. As we reflect on these teachings, it becomes clear that Buddhism offers not just a philosophy but a way of life. It challenges us to look within, to examine our thoughts and actions, and to transform them. It reminds us that we are not victims of fate, but active participants in the creation of our own future. So, take a moment to reflect on your own life. What actions, thoughts, and words are you nurturing today? How can you cultivate more kindness, wisdom, and understanding in your daily interactions? If you want to dive deeper into these teachings, I invite you to subscribe and join our community. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation and grow together in understanding. 2. The humbling and liberating wisdom of karma and samsara in Buddhist thought. Buddhism is a profound and intricate philosophy, offering insights that can guide us toward peace, understanding, and liberation. At the core of these teachings lies the idea of karma and the cycle of samsara, which together shape our lives in ways that many might find both humbling and liberating. These concepts are not just abstract ideas. They are guiding principles that shape how we understand the world and how we act within it. In my own exploration of these teachings, I find the concepts of karma and samsara to be deeply humbling yet profoundly liberating. They remind us that our actions, thoughts, and intentions carry weight far beyond what we might initially realize. The ripple effects of our choices can extend across many lifetimes, impacting not only our current existence but also our future ones. However, there's a sense of liberation in these teachings as well. By recognizing that we are not simply victims of fate, that we can shape our future with the choices we make today. We are given the power to transform ourselves and our lives. This idea offers a sense of continuity and purpose, a realization that our growth, learning, and self-improvement span across lifetimes. We are not limited to just one life. Instead, we are invited to understand that each moment is an opportunity to shape our future, to cultivate wisdom and virtue that will impact not only this life but all the lives that come after. This deep awareness of the interconnectedness of our actions, across both time and space, forms the essence of what it means to be mindful in the Buddhist tradition. It encourages us to see beyond the fleeting nature of our daily experiences and recognize the lasting effects of our thoughts, speech, and actions. And this way, we can begin to see our lives as part of a larger, ongoing journey, one that we shape through the choices we make. The cycle of samsara. Understanding the nature of life and rebirth. At the heart of Buddhist teachings lies the concept of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It is often likened to a wheel that turns without end, each turn bringing us through another cycle of existence. Samsara represents the natural order of life. But more importantly, it also symbolizes the suffering and dissatisfaction that arises from our attachments, desires, and ignorance. In this view, life is not a linear progression, but rather a cyclical process. We are born, we live, we die, and then, according to our actions, karma, we are reborn into another existence. The cycle of samsara is not something that we can escape by simply dying. It continues with each new birth, with each new moment in the cycle of life. What is crucial to understand here is that samsara is not just about physical existence. It also refers to the psychological and emotional cycles of attachment, desire, and suffering that trap us in a state of unrest. The Buddha teaches that the cause of samsara is our ignorance of the impermanent nature of all things, ignorance of the true nature of suffering, and ignorance of the path to liberation. The first step in breaking free from samsara is understanding the nature of suffering, the way in which we cling to things, and the realization that all things, whether it be material possessions, relationships, or even our own sense of identity, are impermanent, is key to breaking free from the cycle of rebirth. The role of karma. Every action has consequences. Karma, often misunderstood as a simple system of rewards and punishments, is actually much deeper. In its most basic sense, karma means action. But it is not just any action, it refers specifically to intentional actions, thoughts, and speech. According to Buddhist teachings, every action we take, every word we speak, and every thought we entertain creates an impression in our mind, leaving behind a karmic imprint that affects us and those around us. But how does karma tie into samsara? The answer lies in the fact that karma shapes the conditions of our future lives. Our actions, whether good or bad, are like seeds that we plant in the fertile soil of our mind. The fruits of these actions will ripen over time, determining not only the circumstances of our present life but also the quality of our future existences. Let me share a story from the Buddhist tradition that beautifully illustrates the law of karma and how it governs our lives. A Buddhist story of rebirth and karma. The tale of the merchant and the young boy. Once, in ancient India, there was a wealthy merchant who owned a great number of animals, including a prized elephant. One day, as the merchant was traveling with his elephant, he stopped at a small village. In this village, there was a young boy who had been born blind. The boy's family had tried everything they could think of to help him, but nothing worked. One day, The boy heard the sounds of the merchant's elephant and was filled with curiosity. He asked his family if they could take him to see the elephant. Upon hearing the merchant's offer to let the boy touch the elephant, the boy excitedly made his way to the merchant's camp. When he touched the elephant's massive body, he was overjoyed to feel the strength and power of the animal. The merchant, seeing the boy's joy, asked if he would like to accompany him on his travels. The boy, filled with gratitude, agreed. As time went on, the boy traveled with the merchant, helping him with various tasks. The boy had a gentle and kind heart, and the merchant came to love him as if he were his own child. The boy, in turn, grew stronger and more confident with each passing day. However, what was more significant than this boy's immediate transformation was the karmic thread that connected his present life to his past. You see, the boy had been born blind because of actions he had taken in a past life. In a previous existence, he had been a merchant, just like the one who now cared for him. But in his past life, he had been selfish, treating the poor and the weak with disdain. He had accumulated negative karma, which led to his current condition. But the beauty of this story lies in the transformation of the boy. Through his acts of kindness and the love he shared with the merchant, the boy was able to generate positive karma. As a result, in the next life, he would be reborn with better circumstances. His positive actions, thoughts, and intentions created a new karmic pattern, one that would lead to greater peace and fulfillment in future lifetimes. Breaking free from samsara. The path to liberation. The story of the boy and the merchant teaches us a profound lesson. Our actions matter, not just in this life, but across many lives. Our karma shapes our future experiences, and it is through understanding and transforming our karma that we begin the path to liberation. This is where the practice of mindfulness and the cultivation of wisdom come into play. The Buddha taught that liberation from samsara is possible. The key to breaking free lies in the cultivation of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. This is encapsulated in the Noble Eightfold Path, a guide for ethical living that leads us toward the cessation of suffering and the attainment of Nirvana. The Eightfold Path is composed of 1. Right view. Understanding the Four Noble Truths and recognizing the impermanence of all things. 2. Right intention. Cultivating the intention to act with kindness, compassion, and wisdom. 3. Right speech. Speaking truthfully and kindly, avoiding harmful words. 4. Right action. Acting ethically, avoiding harm to others. 5. Right livelihood. Engaging in work that benefits others and does not harm. 6. Right effort. Making the effort to cultivate good qualities and eliminate negative ones. 7. Right mindfulness. Being fully present in each moment and aware of our thoughts, words, and actions. 8. Right concentration. Developing deep concentration through meditation. By following this path, we transform our thoughts, speech, and actions, leading to a life free from the attachments and desires that keep us bound to samsara. We cultivate wisdom and compassion, learning to live in harmony with ourselves and the world around us. The call to action. Transforming your karma and your life. Reflecting on this journey, I am struck by the profound liberating wisdom embedded in these teachings. As the Buddha said, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Every action, every word, and every thought we have shapes not only our present life but also our future. And just as the boy's kindness transformed his life, we too have the power to transform our future by cultivating positive karma. If you feel moved by these teachings, I invite you to reflect on your own life. What actions, thoughts, and words are you nurturing today? What kind of future are you creating with your choices? Take a moment to examine your life and see where you can make small but significant changes. Through mindfulness, right action, and the cultivation of wisdom, we can all break free from the cycle of samsara and move closer to the peace and liberation that the Buddha taught. If this journey resonates with you, join us on this path of self-discovery. Subscribe to our channel, share your thoughts in the comments, and let's walk this path of mindfulness and wisdom together. Through collective effort, we can change not only our own lives but the world around us, creating a more peaceful and compassionate existence for all. 3. The Eternal Wheel. The story of King Bimbisara and the wisdom of karma. In Buddhist philosophy, there is a deep and profound teaching about the nature of life, death, and rebirth. It is a teaching that goes beyond the superficial understanding of life and invites us to reflect on the inner workings of existence itself. This understanding is encapsulated in the concept of karma, the law of cause and effect, and samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. These ideas are central to Buddhist practice and offer a profound way to understand the interconnectedness of all beings. One of the most powerful ways to understand these teachings is through storytelling, a technique often used by the Buddha himself to impart wisdom. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a famous story about a king named King Bimbisara, who sought answers to profound questions about life, death, and the consequences of our actions. This story not only illustrates the core principles of Buddhism but also provides a framework for understanding how our past actions shape our present and future experiences. The king's question: life, death, and the cycle of samsara. King Bimbisara, a wise and powerful ruler, was deeply troubled by questions about life and death. Despite his position and wealth, he could not reconcile the suffering that he saw around him. He wondered, why do some people suffer so much, while others live seemingly easy and prosperous lives? Why are some born into privilege, while others are born into poverty and hardship? And perhaps most perplexing of all, why do people seem to experience so much suffering in life, only to die and be reborn again? One day, King Bimbisara approached the Buddha with these questions, seeking the answers that had eluded him for so long. The Buddha, known for his wisdom, responded not with a direct answer, but with a story, one that would open the king's heart to the deeper truths of existence. The Buddha said to the king, "Life is like a potter's wheel. It is constantly turning, shaping, and reshaping. Every action we take, every thought we have, every word we speak, is like the motion of the wheel. It shapes the clay of our lives, molding us into the people we are today, and determining the people we will become in the future. The wheel of life is never still. It is always in motion, turning, creating, and destroying, and yet it is also the very force that gives shape to our existence." The story of the young man. Karma in action. To illustrate this point, the Buddha shared a story about a young man who had lived many lifetimes, each one marked by the consequences of his past actions. In his previous life, this young man had been cruel to others, driven by greed, hatred, and ignorance. He had caused great harm to those around him, leaving a trail of suffering and pain in his wake. He had been unaware of the suffering he caused, caught in the illusion of his own desires and attachments. In his next life, the young man was born into a family of farmers. He was not born into wealth or comfort but into a life of hard labor and physical ailments. From a young age, he experienced illness and suffering. His body was weak, and his mind was clouded with confusion and pain. Despite his hardships, the young man worked diligently on the farm, trying to make the best of his circumstances. But as the young man grew older, He began to reflect on his life and his past actions. He realized that the suffering he was experiencing in this life was not a random occurrence. It was the result of the actions he had taken in his previous life. He began to see the law of karma in action, that his past cruelty and selfishness had led him to his current suffering. The realization was a turning point for him. With this newfound understanding, the young man began to change. He began to practice kindness, compassion, and generosity. He made an effort to be more mindful of his thoughts and actions, striving to act with integrity and empathy. Over time, his physical ailments began to ease, and his mind became clearer. As he cultivated positive actions and intentions, the effects of his past karma began to shift, and his life became more peaceful and fulfilling. The teachings of karma and samsara. The story of the young man in his previous and current life is a powerful illustration of the concept of karma, the law of cause and effect. According to Buddhist teachings, karma is not a simple system of rewards and punishments. It is a natural law that governs the consequences of our actions, thoughts, and intentions. Every action we take, every word we speak, and every thought we entertain creates an imprint on our mind, shaping our future experiences. The law of karma is inseparable from the cycle of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In samsara, we are caught in a perpetual loop of suffering, driven by our desires, attachments, and ignorance. Each lifetime is not an isolated event but part of an ongoing process, influenced by the karma we carry from past lives and the karma we create in this life. As the Buddha taught, we are like the clay on the potter's wheel, constantly being shaped by our past actions, but also capable of shaping ourselves through the choices we make. This understanding of karma and samsara is both humbling and liberating. It is humbling because it reminds us that our actions have consequences not just in this life, but in the lives to come. It teaches us that our suffering is not random, nor is it something we must passively endure. Instead, our suffering is the result of our own actions, and we have the power to transform it by changing the way we live. At the same time, it is liberating because it shows us that we are not bound by our past. The young man in the story could have remained trapped in the cycle of suffering, but by recognizing the consequences of his actions, he was able to change his future. Through mindfulness, right action, and the cultivation of virtue, he was able to break free from the karmic patterns of his past and create a new path for himself. The path to liberation. Transforming karma. One of the most important aspects of the Buddhist path is the understanding that we can change our karma. We are not helpless victims of our past actions. We have the ability to transform ourselves and our future. This transformation is possible through the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the path that leads to liberation from samsara and the cessation of suffering. The Eightfold Path consists of 1. Right view. Understanding the nature of suffering, impermanence, and the interconnectedness of all things. 2. Right intention. Cultivating intentions of kindness, compassion, and wisdom. 3. Right speech. Speaking truthfully and kindly, avoiding harmful words. 4. Right action. Acting ethically, with integrity and compassion. 5. Right livelihood. Choosing a profession that aligns with ethical values and does not cause harm. 6. Right effort. Striving to cultivate positive mental states and eliminate negative ones. 7. Right mindfulness. Being aware of our thoughts, feelings, and actions in the present moment. 8. Right concentration. Developing deep concentration through meditation, leading to clarity and insight. By following this path, we can transform our karma and free ourselves from the cycle of samsara. we can break the patterns of suffering and create a life that is filled with peace, joy, and wisdom. The liberation of the heart. The journey of self-discovery. The story of the young man and the lessons of karma and samsara have profound implications for our own lives. It challenges us to look deeply at the actions, thoughts, and intentions that shape our lives. It reminds us that we are not defined by our past. We are the creators of our future. Every moment is an opportunity to make a new choice, to create a new cause that will lead to a new effect. As we reflect on this story, we are invited to ask ourselves, what kind of future are we creating with our actions? What kind of karma are we cultivating with our thoughts, words, and deeds? Are we caught in patterns of greed, anger, and ignorance? Or are we striving to live with wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness? By practicing the teachings of the Buddha, we can break free from the cycle of suffering and samsara. We can transform our lives by changing the way we act, think, and speak. In this way, we become the potter of our own lives, shaping ourselves and our future with each conscious action we take. Call to action. Walking the path together. If the story of King Bimbisara and the lessons of karma have resonated with you, I invite you to reflect on your own life. Take a moment to consider the actions, thoughts, and intentions that have shaped your journey. What kind of karma are you creating today? How can you cultivate more wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness in your daily life? If you are ready to embark on this path of transformation, I encourage you to explore the teachings of the Noble Eightfold Path. Begin with small steps, cultivate mindfulness, practice right speech, and commit to ethical living. As you do, you will begin to see the effects of your efforts ripple through your life, leading to greater peace, clarity, and happiness. Join us on this journey of self-discovery. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, and let's walk this path together. Through mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, we can break free from the cycle of samsara and create a more peaceful, fulfilling life for ourselves and those around us. For the Buddha's answer to suffering. A path to liberation and nirvana. Buddhism is a deeply introspective and transformative spiritual path that provides profound answers to the fundamental question of life. Why do we suffer? Unlike many other philosophies or religious traditions that might simply describe the human condition and offer solace through belief or external intervention, Buddhism offers both an explanation and a practical solution, a path to transcend suffering. At the core of Buddhist teachings is the recognition that suffering, or dukkha, is an inherent part of human existence. However, Buddha's insights do not leave us in despair. Rather, they invite us to explore how we can end suffering and find a lasting peace, free from the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. Buddhism reveals that suffering is not something that we must passively endure. Instead, it is a phenomenon we can understand and transcend through conscious effort and practice. This realization is one of the first steps towards liberation, the Buddha's ultimate goal, nirvana. The cycle of samsara and the nature of suffering. Before we discuss how suffering can be transcended, it is essential to understand its nature and origin. In Buddhism, samsara refers to the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, wherein beings experience the fruits of their past actions, or karma. Samsara is driven by ignorance and attachment. This cycle is not a mere metaphor, it is the very structure of existence for all sentient beings, whether they are humans, animals, or gods. The Buddha taught that dukkha, translated as suffering, unsatisfactoriness, or stress, is the inevitable experience within samsara. This suffering manifests in various forms: physical pain, emotional distress, mental turmoil, and existential dissatisfaction. Even those who experience moments of happiness are often aware that these moments are fleeting and inevitably give way to pain, loss, and change. This is the essential truth that the Buddha uncovered under the Bodhi tree. Through meditation, mindfulness, and profound introspection, the Buddha realized that the causes of suffering are deeply embedded in the way we experience and interact with the world. Our attachment to things, our craving for permanence in an impermanent world, and our ignorance of the true nature of life all contribute to suffering. But this recognition of suffering is not meant to lead us into despair. Instead, it serves as the first step in the journey toward liberation. The Buddha did not merely point out the problem, he offered a solution. The Four Noble Truths. The framework of Buddhist liberation. The Buddha's teachings on suffering are encapsulated in the Four Noble Truths, which provide a clear framework for understanding the nature of suffering and how to overcome it. 1. The truth of suffering, dukkha. This is the recognition that suffering exists. It is an inherent part of human life. Whether it is the pain of physical illness, the emotional suffering of loss, or the dissatisfaction that comes with clinging to fleeting pleasures, dukkha is present in all lives. Even when we experience pleasure or happiness, there is an underlying awareness that it is impermanent and subject to change. 2. The truth of the cause of suffering, samudaya. The Buddha identified the root causes of suffering as desire, tanha, ignorance, avidya, and attachment, upana. We crave pleasure, status, and material possessions. But these desires only lead to further suffering. The mind is also clouded by ignorance, the inability to see things as they truly are. This ignorance leads to attachment to things that are transient, which only binds us further to the cycle of samsara. 3. The truth of the end of suffering, nirvana. The Buddha's ultimate insight is that suffering can indeed end. Nirvana is the cessation of suffering, and it is achievable. Nirvana is not a place or a reward, it is a state of being, a transcendence of suffering. It is a liberation from the cycle of birth and death and freedom from the cravings and attachments that bind us. The cessation of suffering comes with a realization of the impermanence of all things and the development of detachment. 4. The truth of the path to the end of suffering, magga. The Buddha described a clear path to attain nirvana, called the Noble Eightfold Path. This path is a practical guide for ethical living, mental discipline, and wisdom. It consists of 8 interconnected practices that lead to the cessation of suffering. O right view, understanding the Four Noble Truths and seeing the world as it truly is. O right intention, cultivating thoughts of kindness, compassion, and renunciation. O right speech, speaking truthfully, kindly, and avoiding divisive speech. O right action, acting ethically, avoiding harmful actions such as killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. O right livelihood, engaging in work that does not harm others and promotes the well-being of all. O right effort, cultivating wholesome qualities and abandoning unwholesome ones. O right mindfulness, practicing awareness and presence in each moment, observing the mind without attachment. O right concentration, developing deep states of meditation and mental clarity. By following this path, individuals can gradually rid themselves of ignorance, desire, and attachment, ultimately attaining the state of nirvana, freedom from suffering. The role of meditation in transcending suffering. While the Four Noble Truths provide a philosophical framework, meditation is the practical tool that enables us to experience and embody these truths. Through the practice of mindfulness meditation, vipassana, individuals learn to observe their thoughts, emotions, and sensations without attachment. Meditation helps practitioners understand the impermanent nature of all experiences and how attachment to them leads to suffering. One of the most profound insights gained through meditation is the realization that suffering is not caused by external circumstances, but by the way we respond to them. By training the mind to remain calm, clear, and detached, we begin to let go of the desires and aversions that cause our mental suffering. Through meditation, we develop a sense of inner peace and equanimity, no matter what external circumstances arise. The Buddha's vision of Nirvana, liberation from samsara. Nirvana, often misunderstood as an abstract or distant goal, is the ultimate realization of freedom from samsara. It is the cessation of suffering and the end of the cycle of rebirth. To understand Nirvana, one must first understand samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The cycle is fueled by our attachments, desires, and ignorance. Every attachment to pleasure, every aversion to discomfort, keeps us trapped in this cycle, unable to attain true peace. Nirvana is not simply a state of oblivion, rather, it is a profound transformation of the mind. It is a state of perfect peace, free from the disturbances of desire, anger, and ignorance. It is often described as a state of complete freedom, where the individual no longer clings to the self, to possessions, or to the transient pleasures of the world. In the moment of nirvana, there is complete equanimity, a profound peace that arises from the understanding of the impermanence of all things. This peace is not fragile or temporary, but arises from deep wisdom and understanding. True freedom is found in the ability to let go of the attachments that keep us bound to the endless cycles of samsara. Nirvana is the ultimate liberation. The call to action. Walking the path toward liberation. Understanding suffering and its cessation is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a deeply practical matter. The Buddha's teachings are not simply philosophical but are designed to transform how we live and experience the world. Every moment is an opportunity to practice mindfulness, right speech, and right action. By engaging with these practices, we can begin to reduce the suffering we experience in our own lives, and create a more peaceful and harmonious world around us. If you are seeking to transcend suffering and attain a state of lasting peace, I invite you to start by reflecting on your life. What attachments or desires are binding you to suffering? Are there ways you can practice mindfulness in your daily routine? What actions can you take today to move closer to the liberation that the Buddha spoke of? Take a moment to pause, breathe, and reflect. Meditation, mindfulness, and ethical living are the cornerstones of the path to nirvana. As you take these steps, know that you are moving closer to the peace and freedom that all beings ultimately seek. If this teaching has resonated with you, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue this journey of self-awareness and transformation together. Subscribe for more teachings on how to apply the Buddha's wisdom in your life and walk the path toward liberation. Through this understanding of suffering and liberation, we come to realize that it is not enough to simply know the path to nirvana. We must walk it ourselves. By living in accordance with the Buddha's teachings, we can transcend the cycle of suffering and attain a lasting peace that is free from the shackles of samsara. The practical application of Buddhist principles. Transforming our lives with mindfulness and compassion. Buddhism is not merely a philosophy. It is a way of living, a path of transformation that touches every aspect of life. From the moment we wake up to the moment we sleep, the teachings of the Buddha are meant to guide our actions, our speech, and our thoughts. At its core, Buddhism is about liberation from suffering, not in some distant future or abstract realm, but right here, in our daily existence. The challenge, then, is to apply these teachings in a way that transforms our current lives and helps us create a better future. In this section, we will explore the practical application of Buddhism's profound wisdom in our lives, focusing specifically on how mindfulness, compassion, and ethical conduct can help us reduce harmful karma, transform our minds, and create a more peaceful and harmonious world. Understanding the role of karma in our actions. The concept of karma is fundamental to Buddhist teachings. Karma, often misunderstood as a form of cosmic reward and punishment, is simply the law of cause and effect. Every action, word, and thought we engage in creates an imprint on our consciousness. These imprints, over time, accumulate and influence our future experiences. Essentially, our present life is the result of our past karma, and our future lives will be shaped by the karma we create today. However, karma is not a rigid system. It is fluid, dynamic, and always in motion. This means that the actions we take today, no matter how small, have the potential to change the course of our future. Whether it is a kind word, a mindful gesture, or a deliberate act of compassion, each positive action we take serves to accumulate good karma, gradually diminishing the harmful karma that we have accumulated in the past. The Buddha taught that every action matters, from the largest gestures of kindness to the smallest thoughts of goodwill. This insight should serve as a call to action for us all, urging us to examine the impact of our daily interactions and to choose to engage in actions that create peace and harmony. The power of mindfulness, a tool for awareness and change. At the heart of Buddhist practice is mindfulness, the act of being fully present in each moment. Mindfulness is not just about meditation or quiet contemplation. It is about bringing our awareness into every aspect of our daily lives. It is about recognizing that each moment holds the potential for transformation. When we are mindful, we are not lost in thought or driven by our habitual reactions. Instead, we are grounded in the present moment, observing our thoughts, feelings, and actions with clarity and without attachment. This clarity allows us to make choices that are more in line with our true values, rather than acting out of impulse, desire, or fear. Mindfulness is a practice that can be cultivated both in meditation and in our everyday interactions. Whether we are eating, walking, working, or speaking, mindfulness helps us stay aware of the impact of our actions. By being mindful, we begin to see how our thoughts and behaviors are shaped by underlying emotions like fear, desire, or anger. This insight is the first step toward transforming those emotions and behaviors into something more skillful and compassionate. Story example: The Wise Monk and the Angry Farmer. There is a well-known story in the Buddhist tradition that illustrates the power of mindfulness in transforming our actions. Once, there was a young monk who lived in a peaceful monastery high in the mountains. One day, he was sent on a journey to a nearby village to deliver a message. As he walked through the village, he encountered an angry farmer who had been in a dispute with his neighbor. The farmer, seeing the monk, began to vent his frustration, shouting about his troubles and injustices. He yelled at the monk, blaming the world for his suffering. The young monk, instead of reacting with anger or defensiveness, remained silent, simply listening with a calm and compassionate heart. After a long while, the farmer paused, noticing the monk's calm demeanor. "Why do you not speak?" the farmer asked. "Are you not angry with me for shouting at you?" The monk smiled gently and said, "Anger is a heavy burden to carry, and it harms both the one who feels it and the one it is directed toward. I have chosen not to take on this burden, for I do not wish to add to your suffering." The farmer, seeing the wisdom in the monk's words, calmed down and began to reflect on his own actions. He realized that his anger was not helping him resolve his situation. Over time, the farmer began to practice mindfulness and cultivated a more compassionate approach to his problems. This story highlights how mindfulness can help us respond to situations with greater clarity and compassion. By being mindful of our thoughts and actions, we can avoid reacting impulsively, allowing us to engage with others in a way that reduces suffering rather than adding to it. Compassion as a transformative power. While mindfulness is essential, it is compassion that transforms the way we interact with the world. Compassion, in the Buddhist sense, is not merely a feeling of sympathy. It is an active desire to alleviate the suffering of others. Compassion involves understanding the suffering of others, empathizing with their pain, and taking steps to ease their burdens. The Buddha taught that compassion is the antidote to the selfishness and greed that lead to suffering. When we act out of compassion, we create positive karma that not only benefits others but also enriches our own lives. Compassion is the key to breaking the cycle of attachment and aversion that binds us to samsara. The role of ethical conduct in reducing suffering. Buddhism places a strong emphasis on ethical conduct, or sila, as the foundation of a peaceful and meaningful life. Ethical conduct involves acting in ways that are beneficial to others and in accordance with the principles of kindness, honesty, and non-harm. In the Buddhist path, the 5 precepts serve as ethical guidelines to follow in order to reduce harm and suffering. 1. Refraining from killing. This includes not only refraining from killing others but also cultivating compassion toward all living beings. 2. Refraining from stealing. This teaches us to respect others' property and not take what does not belong to us. 3. Refraining from sexual misconduct. This involves acting with integrity in our relationships and not causing harm to others through our desires. 4. Refraining from lying. Speaking truthfully and avoiding speech that causes division or harm. 5. Refraining from intoxicants. This encourages clarity of mind and prevents us from being driven by cravings or destructive impulses. These precepts are not commandments but rather practices to help guide us toward creating more positive karma and reducing the suffering that arises from harmful actions. They are not meant to be followed out of fear of punishment, but because they bring about inner peace and harmony. Ethical conduct in everyday life. The practice of ethical conduct is not limited to grand acts of kindness. It extends to the small, everyday choices we make. For example, when we speak to others, we have the choice to speak words of kindness, truth, and encouragement. Similarly, we have the choice to act with integrity, respecting the rights and dignity of others. These seemingly small actions are just as important in the Buddhist path as more significant acts of generosity or compassion. Call to action. Bringing Buddhist teachings into our daily lives. Buddhism is not about achieving enlightenment in some distant future or retreating from the world. It is about transforming this life right here, right now. The teachings of the Buddha offer a practical and achievable way to reduce suffering in our lives and in the lives of others. But to realize the benefits of these teachings, we must put them into practice. Start by being mindful of your thoughts, words, and actions. Recognize how your reactions shape your experiences and the experiences of those around you. Pay attention to the impact of your speech, how a kind word can uplift someone, and how a harsh word can cause harm. Each moment is an opportunity to practice compassion, to choose kindness over anger, patience over impatience, understanding over judgment. If you are ready to begin this transformative journey, I invite you to reflect on one area of your life where you can practice mindfulness and compassion more intentionally. Whether it is in your family relationships, your work environment, or your interactions with strangers. Choose one small action each day that embodies the teachings of the Buddha. You can begin by practicing the 5 precepts or engaging in regular meditation to cultivate mindfulness and clarity. Each step, no matter how small, brings you closer to living a life free from the attachments and desires that cause suffering. As you continue this journey, know that every effort you make to live mindfully and compassionately will create positive karma not just for yourself but for those around you. The Buddhist teachings are not just for monks or distant mystics. They are for all of us. Through conscious effort, we can bring the light of wisdom and compassion into every aspect of our lives. So, let us take these teachings to heart and make them a living reality in our daily lives. If this resonates with you, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more teachings on how to apply Buddhist principles in your life. Together, we can create a peaceful and compassionate world for ourselves and future generations. Six, encouraging reflection. The path of mindful action and transformation in Buddhism. In the teachings of the Buddha, there lies a profound invitation to look deeply within ourselves, to understand not just the world around us but also the workings of our own minds. Buddhism teaches that the conditions of our lives, the happiness or suffering we experience, are not dictated by fate, but by the accumulated results of our thoughts, actions, and words. These are not just lessons to be learned intellectually. They are calls to deep, personal reflection and transformation. To understand the essence of Buddhist practice, we must first recognize that our lives are shaped by our karma, the law of cause and effect. This law teaches us that every action we take, every word we speak, and every thought we harbor has consequences, both immediate and far-reaching. And as the Buddha so wisely taught, our actions today shape not only our present life but all the lives to come. This realization should be both humbling and empowering, urging us to reflect on how we engage with the world and how we can transform our lives and, by extension, the world itself. The interconnection between thought, action, and karma. To grasp the true significance of our actions, we must first explore the deep connection between thought, action, and karma. In Buddhism, karma is often misunderstood as a system of reward and punishment. However, it is much more subtle and profound. Karma simply refers to the intentional actions we take, whether through our body, speech, or mind. These actions create ripples in the fabric of our experience, shaping our present and future. The Buddhist teachings do not view karma as a form of judgment. Rather, karma is the natural result of our intentions. Just as planting a seed determines the nature of the plant that will grow, our thoughts and actions create the conditions for the life we experience. The role of thoughts in shaping reality. Many people believe that our circumstances define us. But in Buddhism, it is our thoughts that shape our reality. The Buddha taught that everything begins with intention. A thought, when nurtured over time, becomes an intention. And an intention leads to action. If we hold thoughts of anger, resentment, or hatred, these emotions will drive us toward harmful actions that create negative karma, leading to suffering in this life and in future rebirths. Similarly, if our thoughts are imbued with compassion, love, and understanding, they lead to actions that create positive karma, enriching our lives and the lives of others. The transformation of action through mindfulness. The Buddha's teachings offer a path of transformation that begins with awareness. mindfulness, the practice of being fully present and aware in each moment, plays a crucial role in our ability to transform our thoughts, words, and actions. Through mindfulness, we learn to recognize the fleeting nature of our thoughts and emotions. Rather than being carried away by them, we learn to observe them without attachment. This awareness gives us the space to make conscious decisions, to act in a way that aligns with our highest values. A key practice in Buddhism is mindfulness of speech, recognizing the immense power of words and their capacity to build or destroy. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of speech as a tool for cultivating peace. Words can create harmony and understanding, or they can sow discord and confusion. The mindful practitioner strives to speak in ways that are truthful, kind, and beneficial. By consciously choosing to speak words that uplift others, we not only reduce the harmful effects of our speech but also cultivate a positive, peaceful environment for ourselves and those around us. The power of compassion. A story of transformation. To illustrate the transformative power of mindfulness, let's turn to a story from the Buddhist tradition that demonstrates how mindful action, born from wisdom and compassion, can change not only our lives but the lives of those around us. The story of the angry farmer. Once, there was a farmer who had suffered great misfortune. His crops failed, his animals fell ill, and his relationships with others in the village had deteriorated. One day, feeling utterly hopeless and consumed by his suffering, he went to a nearby temple where a monk lived. The farmer approached the monk, his face twisted with anger, and began to vent his frustrations. "Why is my life so miserable? I work so hard, but everything goes wrong. I have been patient, but nothing ever changes. I am tired of trying," the farmer shouted, his voice filled with bitterness. The monk listened silently, offering no immediate response. After some time, the farmer paused, noticing the monk's calm presence. He asked, "Why do you not speak? Are you not troubled by my suffering?" The monk smiled gently and said, "Suffering is indeed a part of life, and it is natural to feel anger in the face of hardship. But let me tell you a story. There was once a man who was like you, frustrated, angry, and burdened by his suffering. This man, too, lashed out at the world, blaming it for his troubles. But one day, he encountered a wise teacher who asked him, 'If you plant seeds of anger, will they bear fruit of peace?' The farmer was puzzled. 'No, of course not,' he replied. The monk continued, 'Just as planting seeds of anger will never lead to peace, nurturing your suffering will never bring you relief. Instead, plant seeds of kindness, patience, and understanding. These seeds will grow into actions that bring peace, not only to others but also to your own heart.' The farmer was struck by the monk's words. He spent the next few days reflecting on them, noticing the anger and bitterness that had been a constant presence in his life. Slowly, he began to shift his perspective. Rather than blaming the world for his misfortune, he began to practice small acts of kindness. He helped his neighbors, offered a smile to strangers, and treated his animals with care. Over time, his life transformed. His crops began to flourish, his relationships improved, and, most importantly, his heart became lighter. The story of the angry farmer illustrates the power of mindfulness and compassion in transforming our actions, thoughts, and ultimately, our karma. The farmer's suffering did not magically disappear overnight, but through conscious action, cultivated over time, he was able to break free from the cycle of anger and resentment, leading to greater peace and harmony in his life. The importance of ethical conduct in creating positive karma. Ethical conduct, or sila, is a cornerstone of Buddhist practice. It refers to the way we live our lives. guided by ethical principles that prevent us from causing harm to others. These principles are embodied in the 5 precepts, which are the foundation of Buddhist ethics. 1. Refrain from killing. This includes all living beings. It teaches us to cultivate compassion and respect for all forms of life. 2. Refrain from stealing. This encourages honesty and respect for others' property. 3. Refrain from sexual misconduct. This includes acting with integrity in our relationships, treating others with respect and care. 4. Refrain from lying. This emphasizes the importance of truthfulness and avoiding divisive or harmful speech. 5. Refrain from intoxicants. This encourages mental clarity and the cultivation of a disciplined mind. These precepts are not commandments but practices designed to help us reduce suffering and cultivate a life of virtue. By living in alignment with these principles, we gradually reduce the harmful karma we create and increase the positive karma in our lives, cultivating more kindness, wisdom, and understanding. Now, reflecting on the story of the farmer and the teachings of the Buddha, we are left with a simple but profound question. How can we cultivate more kindness, wisdom, and understanding in our daily lives? 1. Be mindful in your interactions. Start by being present in your daily interactions. Pay attention to how your words and actions impact those around you. A kind word can heal a wound, but an unkind word can cause lasting harm. When you speak, ask yourself, is this speech truthful, kind, and helpful? 2. Cultivate compassion in your heart. Take time each day to reflect on the suffering of others and offer your compassion. It may be as simple as a smile to a stranger, a helping hand to someone in need, or a silent prayer for the well-being of others. Compassion not only helps others, but it also opens your heart, reducing the suffering that comes from self-centeredness. 3. Act with integrity. Strive to live by the ethical guidelines provided in the Buddha's teachings. When you act with honesty, integrity, and respect for others, you create positive karma and contribute to a more peaceful and compassionate world. 4. Practice patience. Life often presents challenges and difficulties. But instead of reacting with frustration or anger, practice patience. Recognize that suffering is a natural part of life and an opportunity for growth. With patience, you can transform even the most difficult situations into opportunities for learning. 5. Engage in daily reflection. Take a few moments each day to reflect on your actions, thoughts, and words. Ask yourself, what have I done today that has helped reduce suffering? Where can I improve? This kind of daily reflection helps us stay mindful and encourages continuous self-improvement. Call to action. Begin the path today. If you are ready to transform your life, I encourage you to begin by taking one small step each day. Start with mindfulness, paying attention to your thoughts, words, and actions. Practice kindness, and observe how it changes your interactions with others. Reflect on your own life, and ask yourself what actions you can take to create positive karma. Not just for yourself but for others as well. Let's walk this path together. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And let's support each other on this journey of transformation. If you find this teaching helpful, subscribe to the channel for more insights on applying Buddhist wisdom in your daily life. Through mindfulness, compassion, and ethical conduct, we can begin to transform not only ourselves but the world around us. Remember, your actions today shape your future, and not just in this life, but in all the lives to come. Conclusion. The path to liberation through mindful action. In the teachings of Buddhism, one of the most profound insights is the idea that we are not simply passive recipients of fate. Life is not a series of events that happen to us by chance or destiny. Instead, Buddhism emphasizes that we are active participants in the creation of our future. We shape our experiences and the trajectory of our lives through the choices we make in every moment. This is an empowering and transformative realization. The Buddhist teachings show us that we are not victims of our circumstances, but rather creators of our destiny through our actions, thoughts, and intentions. In Buddhism, everything that happens to us, whether it's pain, joy, success, or failure, is the result of our past actions, karma, and the choices we make in the present moment. The Buddha taught that through mindfulness, right action, and spiritual practice, we can free ourselves from the suffering that comes with ignorance, attachment, and desire. One of the most important practices on this path is mindfulness, the ability to be fully present and aware in each moment. By cultivating mindfulness, we can begin to understand the underlying causes of our suffering, recognize the impermanence of all things, and gradually let go of the attachments that bind us. Right action, acting in harmony with ethical principles, and acting with compassion, helps to reduce the negative karma we may have accumulated. While spiritual practice, whether through meditation, study, or reflection, helps us to deepen our wisdom and understanding of the nature of existence. In doing so, we move closer to the ultimate goal of Buddhism, Nirvana, a state of liberation from suffering, where the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, Samsara, ceases. Nirvana is not a distant goal, reserved for a select few. It is a potential we all carry within ourselves. It is the freedom that arises from transcending desire, attachment, and the illusion of a permanent self. It is a state of peace and clarity, where suffering no longer dominates our minds. But reaching Nirvana isn't just about what happens at the end of life. It's about how we live today, how we respond to the challenges we face, how we treat others, and how we cultivate wisdom in our daily lives. The present moment is where the seeds of our future are sown. The legacy we leave is not just the sum of our material achievements, but the imprints we leave on the world through our actions, our words, and our thoughts. So, today, take a moment to reflect. What legacy do you want to leave behind, not just for this life, but for all the lives yet to come? This is the essence of the Buddha's teachings. We are not destined to suffer forever. We have the ability to break free from the cycle of suffering, not through external circumstances or waiting for something to change, but through our internal transformation. It's through mindfulness, compassion, ethical living, and spiritual practice that we take steps on the path to liberation. Nirvana is not a far-off place, it is a state of mind, a way of being, and it begins with us, right now. The power of right action and mindfulness in your life. As we conclude this exploration, it's important to remember that you have the power to transform your life. The Buddha's teachings give us the tools to cultivate the wisdom needed to navigate the challenges of life with greater ease, peace, and understanding. By following the Noble Eightfold Path, practicing mindfulness in every moment, and cultivating kindness and compassion, we can move closer to understanding the true nature of existence and eventually reach the peace that the Buddha promised. But this journey is not something that happens overnight. It is a gradual process, one step at a time, one mindful moment at a time. The key is to take action today, right now. Reflect on the small things in your life that you can shift. How can you make more mindful choices? How can you cultivate more compassion in your interactions with others? Even the smallest steps can lead to profound transformations. And as you embark on this journey, I encourage you to share your thoughts with others. Buddhism teaches us that wisdom grows through collective understanding, through conversations, and through sharing our insights. So, take a moment today to reflect on your actions and intentions. And ask yourself, what can I do today that will contribute to a peaceful and compassionate world? Call to action. Join the journey of transformation. If you found this exploration of Buddhist philosophy insightful, I invite you to join us on this journey of personal and spiritual growth. Subscribe to our channel, Buddhist Stories, for more in-depth discussions on the teachings of the Buddha. We'll be diving deeper into how these ancient teachings can transform not just our spiritual understanding, but our everyday lives. But don't just watch, engage with us. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you view the concept of rebirth and the role of mindfulness in your life? Let's continue this conversation and grow together in understanding. Your reflections, questions, and experiences can help others along their journey. Just as the Buddha's wisdom has helped countless beings for over 2,500 years. Remember, the path to peace and freedom starts with you right here, right now. Together, let's walk this path of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. And as we move forward, be on the lookout for our next video, where we'll explore practical Buddhist techniques for cultivating inner peace amidst life's challenges. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned and continue exploring with us on Buddhist Stories. An open ending for the next steps. The beauty of Buddhist teachings is that they don't just provide answers, they open doors to further exploration. As you take the steps on the path of mindfulness and right action, you may find that new insights arise, new questions emerge, and new understandings of yourself and the world become clear. The journey is never finished, and each day is a chance to deepen our practice and refine our understanding. So, as you reflect on your own life and the wisdom of the Buddha, know that there is always more to discover, more to learn, and more to apply in your own life. The teachings of the Buddha are not a final destination, but a path of continuous growth, and you are invited to walk it with us. Let's continue together. Your thoughts, your actions, and your reflections matter, not just for today, but for the countless lives yet to come.